Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
Hi, it's Jackie Cation, and you are listening to The Dork Forest. The website's JackieCation.com, DorkForest.com, TheDorkForest.com if you like a determiner. Let's do the credits. Patrick Brady's going to fix this audio and video. Vilmos works on JackieCation.com, and Mike Rickberg sang the song with his wife, Sarah. He composed it, and he will sing his version of the Mexican hat dance at the end of this show. Thank you so much for listening to The Dork Forest. Here's a scoop. I'm doing stand-up online. A lot of Zoom shows will eventually go back on the road. Sign up for my email list. It's easy to get off. It's harder to get on than it is to get off. And no harm, no foul. If ever bored, JackieCation.com, sign up for the email list. You'll find out about my weekly Zoom shows and stand up on the road eventually. You may donate to the show if you would like. I would like. Sure, I would. There's PayPal, Jackie at JackieCation.com, and there is a PayPal button on both DorkForest.com and JackieCation.com. And there's Venmo, if you like Venmo, Jackie-Cation, oddly enough. If you have listened to all of the shows, go to dorkforest.bandcamp.com, I think. The Dork Forest has a Bandcamp page. You can listen to a lot of ones that are free from pre-2009 when I started pre-recording. And then there's live episodes that cost me a couple of bucks, so I charge you a couple of bucks. There's also some stand-up. There's a story album that's very exciting there. And other than that, I have a lot of merch in my garage. Feel free to order if you know anybody who doesn't have any CDs or the DVD. And you can follow me everywhere at Jackie Cation. Let's get into the show. Hi, I'm Jackie Cation. I'm in my living room. Actually, I'm not. Andy's in our living room. I'm in the garage. And Lee Bennet is joining the show again because it's a DC topic. And you know who knows about DC? Lee Bennet. He's dipped in the long boxes. And that sounds like a dick joke, but isn't. Welcome to the show, Lee Bennet.
Thank you. Good to be here.
We all...
At the Hall of Justice.
You're at the Hall of Justice. Now, here's the thing. This is a spoiler episode about Wonder Woman. We're going to talk about all of it. So if you have not yet seen Wonder Woman and care, go away. Come back when you have seen Wonder Woman. And if you do not care and just want to hear the awesome rabbit hole that we're about to go down, tune in. And if you have already seen it, listen up because we're going to do it. My name is Jackie Cation. We got Lee Bennet here. We got Andy Ashcraft. Spoiler episode about Wonder Woman. But let's start, if we could, with the history of Wonder Woman. What do we know? Like, you saw the first movie, obviously, right?
Yes.
And did you like it?
I did, actually. I thought it was pretty good.
Me too.
You know, they, of course, changed the history from the comics to put her in World War I as opposed to World War II. But, you know, otherwise it was fairly similar.
Okay. I did not know that. Is that like who? I know that they that Wonder Woman was created, I think, in the 30s or something by some psychiatrist or something.
Yeah, William Moulton Marsden. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Sensation Comics #1, I think 1939.
Okay.
So was her first appearance.
Oh, so it was, and she had those boots, and she was wearing that outfit from the get.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it was a little bit different, but not too much.
Okay.
I think it had sort of like a Roman skirt on it, as opposed to, anything
a
else.
Bodysuit. Yeah.
I think she had the lasso from the get-go too,
Yes.
because that guy was also known because he's one of the inventors of the lie detector machine.
Yeah.
Right.
He came up with a system for doing a lie detector machine based on heart rate.
Okay.
You can argue as to whether or not it actually worked, but he developed a system, and he said that was before he created Wonder Woman for the comic books, and okay. The lasso may have come from something he was thinking about because he was a psychiatrist and a professor and that sort of stuff, according to what I've read.
So in the first movie, it was World War One. She falls in love with Steve Trevor, airline pilot. No, World War One pilot, and he ends up sacrificing himself at the end of that film to get rid of all the gas bombs and put them in the. I don't know what the science is on that, by the way, but he got them up high enough so that it no longer affected. It wasn't going to affect. He sacrificed himself for the good of humanity. And then, but her whole message of the first one was about love and about anti-war and all this stuff. And now we're 60 years later, right?
Right.
In 1918, and now it's 1984. So whatever. So it's a little more than 60 years later. What has she been doing in this interim time? We don't know. But she has not been, clearly she's been getting rid of cameras, because that first scene.
Yeah. And trying to remain secret, I think, was the whole point, because nobody knows she exists. So presumably she's been doing stuff here and there and rescuing people, and I guess every 20 years or so recreating her life and moving someplace else. That's what you have to do, I guess, when you're, effectively immortal. That's what all the other types of those stories say.
That's right. All the vampire stories.
Yeah. I wasn't going to get into Twilight and all this, but yeah.
Well, I mean, the first scene again is on the island, which I forget the name of, and she's
Themyscira.
working. Themyscira?
Themyscira.
Okay, and
do you think it's pronounced differently, Andy?
No. I always called it thigh mascara, but I knew that was wrong.
Okay.
And she's like 10 years old, and she's in a contest with other like full-grown warriors, and she doesn't, and she does well, and it was one of my favorite scenes of the movie, right? Because she learned that you don't get to win if you cheat. And so Buttercup stops her from cheating. And I want to see a Buttercup movie. I don't know about you guys.
Oh yeah. All in on a Buttercup movie.
Yeah. So what did you guys like that? I mean, that was good action.
Yeah, it was a good opening. It was a good opening scene. I mean, it had its point, its moral point, which would pay off later in the story, of course. So.
Yeah. So the moral point is that you don't get to cheat, and the whole point of the movie is you don't get to wish, which is cheating.
Yeah, but it's truth, truth and justice. That's the whole point, is that she was cheating, she was lying, she was not being truthful to herself, right, and everything, and that's how at the end she becomes victorious, is making people see the truth of what they have wished for, that there's a downside to it.
Right. And a wish is the ultimate shortcut for many of the people who are wishing, I mean, Pedro Pascal, the Mandalorian, his message was that you could cheat. That was it. You don't even have to. There was some line in the second time I saw it where he said, "You don't even have to work hard." And you're like, dude.
That's right. That was his pitch in the television commercial that we saw at the beginning in the screens and the TV showroom.
Right. You could have anything.
You could have anything, and you don't even have to really even work for it. Yeah.
It was such a weird message. Did it feel 84? I mean,
oh yeah.
Yeah. It felt, the televangelist, huckster, 1984. Of course, that's no different than right now, but.
Right. 1984 seems to have retained its still played. The only thing that did not feel 1984 for me was no shoulder pads on any of her outfits. I missed out on the shoulder pad stitch.
We didn't see nearly enough
that one, but yeah, you're right.
No shoulder pads and no. If I remember 1984 correctly, it was full of neon colors.
Oh, it did have a lot more.
Like the day glow oranges and day glow greens and day glow pinks.
They were psyched about being in the filmmakers were psyched about being in 1984, but they didn't seem to embrace it as much as I thought they would have. Because
I've seen people complain about the lack of 1984 music. The only bit we see or hear is in the party that she goes to, where they're playing "Relax," the very beginning of the
big
album
party
version of "Relax."
Right, the Smithsonian party.
Yep.
Yeah. So she's in DC and she's supposedly reinventing her life every 20 years.
Well, I mean, it's a number I made up, but yeah, who knows?
At some point, about the point that somebody would recognize that she's not aging, there's got to be an accident or something, and then she's got to start over.
Right. Who wants to move? What's interesting to me, so the first scene is that flashback scene where we get the moral, right? Where we get whatever we're going to learn in this movie, we're going to find out when she's 10.
Right.
And she's going to have to learn it, because that was one of the realest moments in that movie when that kid was just crying. When the 10-year-old's crying, going, but I would have won. And Buttercup's like, yeah, no.
Antiope,
that's her name. Okay. And and I loved all the horseback, all the tricks, and all the acrobatics and the ring work.
It was super. It was that opening sequence is phenomenal. Yeah,
and then what I forget even what the first scene where we see Wonder Woman. Where is she?
That's the first scene is when she's rescuing several people in the street. There's the little flashes where she flashes across the screen and she saves somebody. But
the jogger.
Then the first big scene is the fight scene at the mall.
Right. Okay. With the Keystone Cops of robbers. Yeah. They were pretty buffoonish. They did feel kind of like a Christopher Reeves Superman kind of world.
Mm-hmm. And I've read that Patty Jenkins, the director, loves those movies, and so wanted to have that feel. Okay. Yeah.
She loves those 1980s. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And to me, it was sort of an interesting because it's an interesting tonal shift, right? Because that opening sequence in Themyscira is very modern looking and feeling. And then you shift into this 1984 moment in the mall, and it feels, just the filmmaking of it feels kind of old fashioned. It feels like it was made in the 1980s. Like even the stunt work and the wire work is a little bit more, she flies around or jumps around in the same way that sort of Superman sort of flies around. It just sort of like, there's just something about it, the way it's lit. There's just something about it that makes it feel like it's one of those movies. And I think that's all completely and utterly on purpose. Okay. So purposeful, you thought that she did that. Yeah. And then when does it change again? I feel like it shifts. I think it shifts when we get to see the life of our villain. When we get to see what's his
walk
name?
Into his shit, Pedro.
Max
Lord.
Max Lord. When Max Lord goes back to his headquarters and it's empty, and we get to see that life. I think that's where the tonal shift happens. It ceases to be like the 1980s movie and it becomes a more modern movie. What's the history of Max Lord, though, Lee?
Okay. Well, he first showed up in Justice League. One of the reboots of Justice League. Don't ask me to count which one it was. It was the comic was Justice League as opposed to Justice League of America. It was in 1987, I believe, and it was written by Keith Giffen, and he had redone he was redoing the Justice League for probably about the 5th time. It was a post-crisis, I believe, but he reset the tone, and Max Lord is a businessman, like he sort of is here, but he is setting up a version of the Justice League, a new one, because they sort of disbanded and been gone for a while. I don't recall why. It's been a long time since I read those comics. But with a new version of the Justice League with a lot of new characters. So it has Martian Manhunter. That's first where you see Booster Gold teaming up with Blue Beetle. You have Guy Gardner as the Green Lantern. You have Batman.
Okay. Who's Booster Gold?
A little bit, yeah.
Who's Booster Gold? If we could weed off quickly here and tell me who Booster Gold is.
Booster Gold is somebody from the future who has a number of items of future tech, which he uses to go back in the past and be a superhero because he's kind of a failed person in the future. I don't remember too many more details than that.
Okay, so he literally just takes his tech, comes back here so that he can be a hero.
Right. Yeah, he has like I think he has a Legion flight ring. I think in some version of it, he had one of Brainiac 5's force field belts.
Oh, so it's not even his own tech.
Things. No, it's not even his own tech. He robbed it out of a museum, as I recall.
Oh my gosh! So, well, at least he's using his powers for good. But he wanted to be a hero, but he couldn't do it in his own time.
No.
And then the Blue Beetle, what's his jam? Does he drive a beetle?
No. Blue Beetle's one of those interesting characters because he has a flying beetle, sort of like the night owl in The Watchmen, and the reason for that is those were based on the original Blue Beetle that was done for Charlton Comics, and the rights of those when Watchmen was originally thought out, when the author originally thought about that, he wanted to use these old Charlton characters. But in the meantime, DC had bought him up because they wanted to use him in their comics. So they didn't want him writing this dystopian comic book using these new characters that they were planning on using in their mainstream. So he had to invent brand new characters, which probably worked out better.
So the owl in the Watchmen is Blue Beetle.
Effectively Blue Beetle.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, but instead of a flying beetle, he has a flying owl.
And he's basically a Bruce Wayne sort of character. He's a
detective-y?
Well, more technology. He doesn't have any superpowers of his own. He just has gadgets.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So Blue Beetle's gadget guy, but with a flying beetle.
Yeah.
Yes.
He also runs a tech company, Cord Industries, which you'll see popping up here and there in the Arrowverse shows that refer to Cord Industries.
Okay.
But that's where that came from. And he's an inventor. He invents all this stuff. And like inventors do in comic books, he goes on to fight crime.
The best ones do, anyway. Yeah. So Max Lord, yeah,
and Max Lord is the guy who's putting these all together. His motives are really unclear for a long time. There's indications that he's doing it for the right purposes. There's indications that he's shady and wants to use this to gain power behind the scenes. He doesn't have mental powers at this point in the comics. That comes later in a storyline called Invasion, where the Dominators, who are villains from the Legion of Superheroes stuff, come in and experiment on people, and he gains these mental powers, which in the comics allows him to give people a kind of a mental push to do something they'd probably be inclined to do anyway.
Okay.
And
so
then
it's not he can't control them or anything. Initially. Okay.
Yeah. And then it continues to ramp up and up, and they get more and more powerful. And eventually he gets to the point where if he works at it hard enough, he can control Superman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When you can control Superman, that's bad news.
Yeah, because you want to leave Superman alone unless Superman's gone rogue. What is with the Max Lord character? Was there ever a Wish Stone that you know of in the? So that was probably
that was
made
whole
for the-
cloth new, as
Okay.
far as I can figure out.
because that was a wish stone that it looked kind of like the Lord of the Rings when it burned when he becomes the stone, and then there's stuff written on the inside as well as written on the outside.
Yeah.
We never do get to see what the hell, but she mentions that there's a lot of gods, and some of
Right.
them are different.
And it's written in the god whatever's written on the inside is written in the god language, whatever that happens to be.
Okay, yeah, and
Super ancient Greek.
super, yeah. I don't know the words of Mordor, and but he's mostly just a mentalist kind of entrepreneur business guy in the comics.
Yeah. And the one thing they did carry over when he was granting the wishes, you could see like his ear bleeding a little bit and his nose bleeding every once in a while. That was one of the telltale things in the signs in the comics, that he had used his powers and he'd really pushed his powers as his nose would start bleeding.
Oh,
And
okay.
so that was one of the telltale scenes they used in the comics. When somebody else starts acting really weird, you just flip to Max Lord and his nose would be bleeding. And it's like, okay, well, he did it. Kind of thing. You know, it's a good visual tell. And they brought that into the movie.
The DC, I've noticed, doesn't do as many Easter eggs, and this is probably just because I don't know enough about DC. But did you see any Easter eggs that?
I mean, there was a few. You know, you could talk about, they aren't like DC Easter eggs as much as it is homages to the original movie. Is that she's obviously maintained some connection to those characters. You see her in a scene with Etta Candy being much older. And I haven't watched it but once, and I wasn't freeze framing it when I was watching it once because my wife would have yelled at me. But
Next time,
there was a scene where she's out of a wedding, and I'm guessing somebody else out there has probably freeze framed it already, but I'm guessing it was one of the other characters from the original movie getting married.
okay. That team, yeah.
Yeah. But there were a couple of other Easter eggs. There was, of course, the other businessman that Max Lord is involved in, Simon Stagg, who's a character from the comic books.
Oh,
he's actually a character from the Metamorpho comics from back in the 50s.
Oh, wow.
And he's the guy who runs the company that's doing experiments that create Metamorpho.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
What is Metamorpho again?
Metamorpho he's a hero. I mean, he was created in a industrial accident, effectively, and it allowed him to assume the powers of the four elements: fire, earth, air, and water. And so, you know, he could become sort of like, he could project flame and earth and water and stuff like that.
If I remember correctly, he can also shape-shifting and changing the material of his body too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, later on he could turn into pretty much anything he wanted kind of stuff. But the things he turned into, as I recall, retained some of the primary colors that he had, which was like orange and blue and white, or something like that. I mean, all those things are artifacts of the old printing capabilities.
Right. But, and is that Simon Stagg, or is that someone else entirely?
Someone else entirely.
Okay. What was Simon Stagg's jam?
Yeah, Simon Stagg is the guy who owned that company.
Okay.
Who created Metamorpho?
That created Metamorpho. Metamorpho's real name was Rex something. I don't remember his last name. But the one thing interesting about the Metamorpho comic books is the one thing I'll throw out there with a slight little connection to Wonder Woman and why the name was probably used. It was drawn by one of the really great women artists in comic books, Ramona Fradon.
Okay.
So whose big work was Aquaman and Metamorpho, and then later she took over the Brenda Starr newspaper series when the original writer-artist retired.
Oh, okay.
And did that for 20 years, I think, or more.
That's
cool.
steady work. Yeah.
I've actually met her at a couple of the conventions. She used to make it to San Diego every once in a while when I could still go to San Diego.
Right. So Jeff Johns he wrote this movie with Patty Jenkins, or he wrote this movie with Patty Jenkins, and Patty Jenkins got to be a writer on this movie because Jeff Johns is a famous, like he's been writing comics for 20 odd years, right?
More than that, I think. Maybe a little over 20. Yeah, I think he came in he was one of those new writers that came in the late 90s.
Yeah. But I remember him, the first I remember him, or when he came to my awareness, was when he took over Flash. Mm-hmm. And he wrote that really great series, it's probably 2 or 3 years on the Flash that were just fantastic. Yeah.
One of the interesting things, the connection to what we were talking about earlier with the Superman movies and Donner, is Jeff Johns came to LA because he wanted to be involved in film, and cold called Donner's production company, and kind of accidentally got on the phone with the man himself and became his production assistant.
And Donner is the guy who produced
Richard Donner?
Yeah.
The Superman movies.
Yeah. And then he got into comic books later. That was sort of how his starting as a writer is. He started as a production assistant doing, the kind of low-level grunt work that one does, but then moved on to being a writer and then got involved in comics and has become really, to my mind, one of the great comic book writers of that time period. He's still writing a lot of comics now.
Yeah.
Right. So he started writing The Flash and all and
well, no, that's just when I first noticed.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think he'd been writing stuff before that.
Yeah,
that was just when I first noticed.
He did a really great run on Superman. And then he did a run on JSA. And
Justice
Society of America, but the comic book was called JSA. And interestingly enough, he was the guy who created the character of Stargirl, who is somewhat based on his sister who died in a plane accident.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And but he created the character of Stargirl, which is now the character of one of the newer CW series.
Right. We watched the first episode of that, I think, Jackie. First one or two.
Yeah. I like that.
You want to talk about something that's loaded with Easter eggs. Now that's a series that's loaded with Easter eggs.
And that's on DC Universe app, right? That's not on...
It's one of the CW shows, so I don't know where those are showing these days.
I think we had a trial for DC Universe for a month, and we watched a bunch of stuff, including that Harley Quinn cartoon, and then it went away. And I was like, and then I didn't do anything about it.
Yeah. And then the other Easter egg, pulling the story back to the other side, the other Easter egg I caught in this one was when they cordoned off part of Cairo with the walls and stuff, is the nation that the guy wanted to recreate was Bialya, which is the one that Black Adam, the sort of evil Shazam, wants to run. And so I actually, when I was watching the movie, I was like, okay, are they going to tease Black Adam here? But
I think haven't they already they've already released a Black Adam teaser trailer.
Okay. Well, I know they're planning on making the movie, which I want to say is going to star Dwayne Johnson.
That's what that's my memory of it too.
And they clearly teased it in a deleted scene that was supposed to be at the end of the Shazam movie.
What? Okay.
Yeah, they had a deleted scene there where they show an extra throne that's empty. And I haven't watched this. A friend of mine was telling me about it.
Okay.
But that's clearly probably going to be Black Adam.
Okay. So how are you spelling Adam? A-D-A-M?
A-D-A-M. Yeah.
Okay. So and Black Adam is from the Easter egg country that oil guy was from?
Yeah, it was connected to Bialya. Yeah.
Bialya, which I want to say Bialy, which is a flattened bagel.
Yes.
But it's Bialya. And
it's in the Wonder Woman 84. In Wonder Woman 84, it's the country that gets the big rock wall around it.
Yeah.
Right. He says he wants all of his land back. He wishes for all of his land back and for it to be protected. And so a wall just grows up in between.
Yeah.
And it's a giant sand wall, which made me think of that wall in the Bible around Egypt. Is that what it's supposed to be, or no? Or is it supposed to be something else, do you
Now
think?
that one I couldn't tell you, but
Okay.
the connection would make sense. But
Right. I mean,
in the comics, Black Adam, creates his own country because, he's got all the powers of Shazam. He can do this and rule it with an iron fist or whatever to protect the land of his ancestors from, like ancient Egyptian times.
What are all the powers of Shazam?
Okay, now you're going to try to make me remember the acronym.
It's an acronym.
And
Holy
it's
shit.
like
yes.
the wisdom of Solomon, the strength of Hercules, the speed of Achilles, the power of Zeus, and okay,
Two
I'm
A's.
blanking on the A and the M now. I guess the speed of Mercury is the M, and I'm blanking on what the
Well, no, you've already got
Atlas.
you've got
Yeah.
speed already with Achilles.
Yeah, so I don't remember exactly, but it's like four gods. It's like four gods and a demigod and a philosopher. I don't know how he got in there.
Right.
Probably the wisdom of Athena or the wisdom of Solomon. But anyway, you can look it up.
You could right. No, I love the idea that Shazam is an acronym.
Yeah, in the comics it was an acronym.
Okay.
So, but
And
it told
Black Adam-
it told the powers that he had. So,
And Black Adam has those powers because of how?
well, Black Adam was a version of the champion from Egyptian times.
Oh, okay.
But he starts, he's like the analogy is Sinestro in the Green Lantern comics. The power, he wants to use his power to establish an order, no matter what.
Okay.
And and people will do the right thing or else. And so the wizard decides that he's not worthy of his power, strips it away.
Okay.
Comes back like all good villains do.
Right. Yeah, I just saw Shazam. I had not seen it before, and so I weed off now the villain in that one. Who was the bad guy in that one? The kid who was not worthy.
Yeah.
Doctor. Mark Strong is the actor.
Oh right, yeah, he was a doctor.
Dr. Zavanna.
Zavanna. Yeah. So, but Shazam feels like it could be part of that sort of Superman and the first part of Wonder Woman world too.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
But
Superman shows up at the end of it, right?
Yeah.
Oh right, that's right. He did show up.
Double spoiler episode.
Double spoiler.
Also Shazam.
Also Shazam. And but I will say that my favorite scenes of Wonder Woman were the training scene, the sort of the contest in the beginning, the scene where her and Steve Trevor are with the caravan.
Mm-hmm.
And the lecture though of course you gotta love it when she's using the lasso to grab bullets out of the sky, just out of the air. The lasso seemed much more versatile than I remember it being. But
she could grab clouds, she could grab airplanes as they go by, she can grab bullets as they go by.
And oddly enough, because when you asked me to do this, I was like, okay, well, let me go look at this, because that lasso has been reinvented so many times, it's crazy. Wonder Woman was one of those characters that was reinvented a bunch of times throughout the comic book history. And a lot of that is actually based on some of the stuff that was in the comics. Like she could fly by spinning this thing around and creating air currents, a la Thor throwing his hammer.
okay.
And so, a lot of that was, and it was kind of indestructible, and she could do a lot of the stuff by whipping it out and grabbing people and things. So that was all stuff that, was sort of in the comics at one point or another.
Mm-hmm. I like that she could show people the truth through it as well.
Yeah.
Not only get the truth from them,
But show them.
but also show them the truth.
Oh,
And it also kind of makes sense that she would have figured out how to use it a little better in the last 60 years.
Well, right.
True. Yeah, because she had 60 years of elegantly eating alone in restaurants.
Yes.
Which,
and turning coffee cups invisible.
And one yeah, was she, so how did she get the invisible airplane in the comics? Like, 'cause she made that airplane that they stole, by the way.
Yeah, the invisible airplane, I think, was something that came from Paradise Island, from Themyscira.
Okay.
So that was something from there. The way they did it was something brand new of her being able to make things disappear.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was a nice way to create the invisible jet.
Which we want.
I thought it was
want
nice.
The invisible jet.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want the invisible jet?
Exactly.
We all grew up with it in the cartoon, in the Saturday morning cartoon, where she could fly around their invisible jet. Didn't make anything inside it invisible. It was just invisible itself.
It was also in the Linda Carter TV series.
That's right.
Where she's just sitting in a chair in the sky.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Although on the first season, when it was World War II, it was an invisible prop airplane, but details.
Right. Details are important, though. And so, but I like that she could spin and use it as a shield, and she grabbed that thing out of that one bullet out of the sky and threw it on the ground. And then after she makes her wish, she loses her powers, and Kristen Wiig gets her powers. Kristen Wiig's wish is to be like Diana Prince.
Right.
And,
which includes, she didn't realize, also included superpowers.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then she turns into the Cheetah. So what's the comic book history on the Cheetah?
That one, I'm going to go from vague memory, in that she was an archaeologist and a historian, just like in the movie.
Yep.
But like a lot of these archaeologists, historians, and comic books, she found some artifact that had a curse on it that backfires and gives her the power. Starts turning her into an animal. I don't remember which culture that was from in the comic books. I want to say it was South American, but I could be completely wrong on that one.
Right.
I'm really going from vague memory on that.
Okay. But in the comic book, she does turn into a cheetah with a tail.
Yeah.
A lady
for
with
sure.
a tail.
Yep.
Yeah. Because she didn't initially. She just turned into sort of a cooler looking version of herself. My problem with the Kristen Wiig character, of course, I will only say this once, is that she had what had to be 2 or 3 doctorates. There's no way she's quite not able to talk about the things that she's passionate about. I can get people to talk for an hour on the Dork Forest without any information, just enthusiasm.
Yeah, it's that, and also I felt like they missed an opportunity with Kristen Wiig for her to be funny. And there's a scene when she and Diana Prince are out to dinner, and it cuts to Diana Prince. Like, the scene opens with Diana Prince laughing and going, "Oh, you're so funny," and you're like, "It's Kristen Wiig. Of course she's funny."
Yeah.
What did she just say? What did she say? I want to know the joke.
Jesus Christ. Right. There were, and then she makes that room full of people everybody's laughing when.
That's right.
Yeah. Kristen Wiig's hilarious. She could have even ad-libbed something. I mean, maybe she did ad-lib something, but it was too dark for the movie, or it was too blue, or it was dirty or something, but they could have written something, for God's sake.
Yeah. But, they didn't want the character to be funny. They wanted the character to go from, mousy to seductive to villainous.
Right. Funny is just going to make everyone like her more.
Right.
Fair enough. But she ends up being a really good villain, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think they did miss an opportunity with that one homeless guy, like when she had, and no, they didn't. They did it, didn't they?
Yeah.
She was mean to him. She was really nice to him in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then she brought him a meal.
Yeah. When she's beating up the creeper and about to kill him, he wanders up and she essentially tells him, go away and leave me alone.
Yeah. Mind your own business.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mind your own business is what she says, instead of just going, "Oh, right." Which, would have been a more nuanced character if she would have been like that too. But she's the only one who doesn't renounce her wish at the end, if I remember correctly.
Right.
It's ambiguous, I think. I've only watched it once, but I thought it was ambiguous.
I don't think she does.
She is no longer a cat at the very end.
No.
She becomes just sort of.
Okay.
At one point, she has the cat makeup on, and then she full on has the tail.
But that makes sense because in the movie, she effectively gets 2 wishes. She gets one from the stone, which is to become more like Diana Prince, including the Wonder Woman powers. And then she gets a wish from Max Lord after he has become the stone to turn herself into the cheetah to become the, quote, alpha predator, unquote.
Right. On the airplane.
That's what they used in the movie.
Apex Predator, I think.
Apex Predator.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Oh my God, she did get. I wondered about that. She did get 2 fucking wishes.
Yeah.
Pardon my language. And it was weird how Max Lord was using the wish thing. He's like, okay, so I will grant you that wish, but then I get your oil,
Right.
And
he every time he granted a wish, he could give himself a wish too.
Now, he could control what the curse was going to be, what the person was going to have to give up. Because, the background of what they found out about the stone, of course, the guy that created it, he would give you a wish, but you would lose something precious to you. And so being the stone himself, I guess, he was able to control what the person was losing. And it was something that he wanted most of the time until he starts granting wishes to everybody.
Right.
Right. And then he just started pointing, I think, at the different cameras going, I'm going to take because I remember him saying, I'm going to take your health.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to take whatever, these things. Do you know, what did his son, the second time we watched it, I think his son wished to spend more time with his dad. Was that what he wished?
Well,
no, he wished for his dad to, because we stopped it when we went back. Remember, we rewound it because we didn't quite catch it.
Yeah.
He wished for his dad to become a great man.
Oh, for his dad. Was that it? A great man, or was it success, or was it?
I think it was success. I wish for your success.
Yeah, it was a weird thing.
It was a weird thing for a 9-year-old to wish for.
But his father led him straight into it. Max Lord led him straight into it.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, the son says, well, I wish this, I wish that. But, he's already had his one.
Right.
Right. And it's, and yeah, because he's looking into the camera going, I wish you were here. I wish you were here.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he starts giving everyone the wishes, and there's a lot of Porsches. There's a lot of Porsches happening for some reason. And that feels 1984.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it does, actually. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, at the end, when, of course, Wonder Woman talks him down, she talks to everybody through the cameras. I thought they were going to go where they were going to go in the comics, but that would have been pretty dark.
And where did they go in the comics?
Well, in the comics, which was part of the lead-in to the Infinite Crisis series, which Jeff Johns wrote, since we were talking about him earlier, when I said Max Lord gains the power to control Superman, he does. And Wonder Woman and Batman are trying to stop him because, this guy controls Superman. He can make him do anything he wants. And Wonder Woman gets to him and gets the lasso on him and compels him to tell her, what is it, how can I stop you? And Max Lord says, kill me. So she reaches out and she snaps his neck and kills him. And
I don't think they could have done that.
I was like, are they actually going to go there as I was watching this?
Yeah, because she was trying to get the rope around him.
Right. Well, and one of the things that the book that they found had told them is like, you either have to renounce your wish or you have to stop him. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, are they going to go there? Mm-hmm. And in the comics, it goes on because Wonder Woman just reaching out and seemingly in cold blood, snapping this guy's neck, gets broadcast to TVs all over the world. So which everybody sees her.
What would have happened? That would have happened.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not where they went in this one. But like I said, that would have been really dark.
Yeah.
That would not have fit the tone of the movie at all.
No, I'm really like the way that she handled it. I've seen people complain that, the end of it was like, oh, the woman just gets to talk the guy down. But she's already had her big battle sequence with her physical nemesis. And so now she has to have the crisis with the emotional, the sort of spiritual nemesis of Max Lord, and convincing people to renounce their wishes, mostly convincing him to renounce his wish, but also she convinces a lot of other people to renounce their wishes too. Not everybody, clearly. I mean, there'd be no way.
Right, but there was the scene in the sort of the bodega or the diner where that guy is like, the woman says, "I wish all you people would go back to where you're from," and then you see Bobby's just arresting Irish people out in the street, and that guy goes, "Well, I wish you were dead," and then she goes, "Ah!" and falls down, and was kind of cool. And then Ronald Reagan renouncing his wish. That was very important. That felt.
But, that's what one of the things that Wonder Woman is supposed to be about is, helping people see their better selves, helping them become their better selves.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that she's supposed to be about.
Yeah.
Really?
And I'm really glad that they managed to write that and write an ending where she could do that. Because that's not an easy thing to. I mean,
no.
These are non-visual things, right? And so they managed to write in a visual storytelling mode in a big blockbuster film a way for her to do that, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, that was clearly. I mean, there were some great stunts and some cool scenes in it, but that was clearly the greatest speech. And the best scene is when she's got the thing wrapped around him, and she's like, "I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to them," and that was out. I need to actually watch that again now, because it's one of those scenes like in Captain Marvel when she's talking to Annette Bening. And she goes, "I've been fighting with one hand tied behind my back." Yeah. And she takes the control thing off her neck. I was like, "Oh shit!" And so when Wonder Woman is just like, literally, that's what Wonder Woman has to be in the whole. And it's too bad that wasn't kind of. It's hard to sustain that, like you said. It's hard to write that for an hour and a half. It was a little too long. And then we can talk about the problems with, was his name Tim? I keep thinking his name was Tim.
I just looked him up on IMDb, and in the script, he's just a handsome guy.
Oh, the guy that Steve Trevor takes over his body?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know why I thought his name was Tim.
They may have mentioned it at some point because I mean, it's not like they didn't have his wallet.
Right. I don't know why Steve Trevor needed an apartment and a wardrobe. They could have just done what they did in the first Wonder Woman movie and gone to the Gap.
Well, yeah, and I think that they didn't want to do that. They probably didn't want to make it that exact, even though it was the reverse scene, right?
Right. Do you remember that store in 1984? It was like there was the women's version was an id, and then there was a man's version where all the shirts didn't have collars and they were checkered black and white. I mean, literally.
Structure, I think, was the name of the store.
I think it was Structure. I would have loved that scene.
I like that store.
I can't say that I remember any of those, but those weren't the kind of places I shopped in the 80s. So,
Yeah, it was more of a but they didn't do that. Instead, he takes over the body of an existing person with a soul who I guess is then shunted off to wherever Steve Trevor's soul was.
I guess.
Well, one of the ambiguous things in the movie is anybody else but her seeing him as Steve Trevor. Because she makes the comment that I caught is like, "I see nothing but you."
Right.
But nobody else to everybody else, he's just a generic guy.
He's just
who
that
happens
guy.
to show up with Diana Prince.
Right, which means that he's got that guy's fingerprints, and he's just now stolen a jet from the Smithsonian.
Right.
There's all kinds of trouble.
Not to mention all sorts of stuff in the White House, but
Right, and then there's a fight in the White House, which he's involved in. So that guy is in a lot of trouble at the end of this movie.
Well, assuming all of that stuff wasn't just completely reset by everybody losing their wishes.
Right. And so that's a very good argument that when she renounces her wish, he knows that none of it happened.
Yeah. The only thing that appears to have remained was all the garbage everywhere.
That's what I was going to say. It was like there was a lot of litter.
Right.
I was like, so everybody.
But they did get rid of all the bombs, like all the bombs that were flying around. They all got undid.
The giant sand wall. The wall came crumbling down like Jericho. Yeah. And my second biblical reference. What's happening? And but I think. But it is weird that guy, like, they could have just created a Steve Trevor. Like, he could have just popped back into existence.
Yeah. So that's why, but ultimately going back to the apartment, I think this is why I think they did it this way, is so that they could have the apartment and have the changing clothes scene, so that instead of going to a store, because going to the store would have been the exact opposite thing.
Okay.
And they wanted it to not be exactly opposite. So they instead did this other morally reprehensible thing of having them take over somebody else's body.
Right.
In order to get a clothing change scene.
Right.
Which
to get the fish out of water scene.
Yeah.
All the stuff that he doesn't, that's new and different.
Right. But they could have still done that. They could have done
I'm not arguing with you.
Yeah. It's just the clothing, like that's all they really bought with making that choice to have him like possess somebody else's body. All they really bought was getting to go through that guy's closet.
Right. But though they did have a very sweet moment with that guy at the end of the movie with that weird outfit.
Yeah, the pirate outfit.
That's sort of that drapey scarf business. And so that was a nice scene that pointed out that guy was an okay guy. Right? He wasn't...
He wasn't a creepo like he was when we saw him at the very, very beginning. Or we thought he was a creepo, but it turns out he was Steve Trevor.
Oh, is that the first time we see him is at the party?
Yeah.
When he's chasing after. But they live in the same building, but it just they've never really met before.
No.
They don't?
No, they don't live in the same building.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I thought they did. So, so at the end,
he had to look up her address in the phone book.
Oh, that's right. That was written in the.
Yeah.
And, well, it's good of her to be listed.
Right. I mean, if you're going to create a secret ID every 20 years, it's important to have them all listed.
Right. Is she going to be on the
it was 1984.
Right.
Phone books were a big deal.
Yeah, everyone has my address. It's very interesting. But the weird thing I was thinking about, so at the end of the movie, is there another movie? Like, what's the next movie?
Oh, that's a good question.
Now, supposedly they've already fast-tracked it, but, do they... I think the next one, they probably jump to modern times.
Right. You would think, and because she's also been in, like, the Wonder Woman character, I have not seen the Justice League movie, but she was in that, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Or she was in Batman versus Superman?
Both.
Or she was in both?
Yeah.
Very, very briefly in Batman versus Superman.
Some fairly decent scenes. She was in 4 or 5 scenes. A couple of them pretty long.
That's right. Yeah. You're right. Sorry, I was just thinking about the. I conflated I had placed the last scene in the post-credit scene of Wonder Woman, the first Wonder Woman movie, into that movie, but that's not where it existed.
Yeah, it partially exists in that movie.
Right.
But yeah.
Right.
And those and Batman versus Superman and the Justice League. Yeah. Those both took place in modern times, right? Yeah. 2006, 2000, whenever they were made. I can't believe I haven't seen either of them. but
We saw one on the airplane. We saw the Batman versus Superman on the airplane.
I saw parts of it.
Justice League has its moments.
Okay.
I'm probably not going to see the Zack Snyder cut unless everybody starts saying, "Oh wow, this is fantastic." I'm not going to get into the whole two different cuts of the movies and the various problems with Justice League. There's a lot of stuff there to unpack. But
Is there? What's wrong? What happened?
Well, it's just,
it's a mess.
It's a mess. I can talk to you about it later, but for the podcast, it would be a heck of a lot of stuff to unpack that
Is it
I don't want to
another
get
episode?
into. Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe get somebody else for that one. But
somebody who's actually enthusiastic about it to counterpoint.
It has a lot of stuff in it. And Batman versus Superman is even more of a mess than Justice League. They both have great scenes. I mean, some just great scenes. But the movies themselves are a bit of a mess. But she's in both of them. They're in modern times.
Any of the great scenes?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
What was a great scene in Batman versus Superman with Wonder Woman?
There's the scene where she shows up at a party that Bruce Wayne is at. And they have a dialogue because he's trying to steal some stuff from Lex Luthor, and she's trying to steal the same stuff from Lex Luthor. And Diana Prince and Bruce Wayne have this thing about they both recognize what the other's trying to do and everything. So they have this great scene between the two of them. It's fantastic.
Do they both know each other's secret identities?
Not at that point.
Oh, interesting. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then is there a good scene with her in the Superman, the JLA?
Oh yeah, there's several of them in there.
What's a good one?
I mean, the fight scene at the end, she's fantastic in.
Oh, cool.
There's also the scene where Aquaman ends up sitting on her lasso of truth and babbling out what he actually thinks is happening or what's going to happen. It's hysterical. It's really funny.
Oh, good stuff. Okay.
And she has a really good scene with Cyborg in that one too.
Okay.
But so anyway, but I think the third one they could jump into modern times. Who knows what they'll do? In theory, the Cheetah is still around. There's other good Wonder Woman villains out there.
I'm hoping that Mr. Mind recruits her as well to create the villain group.
Yeah.
Cheetah.
Yeah. So it'll have Dr. Zavanna and Cheetah, and who else would be in it? What other villains have they left alive? Lex Luthor.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, because you could create the whole Injustice Society is Justice League, which they're doing over on Stargirl. But what was the group in?
I'm trying to remember what it was called.
But it was Cheetah and
the League of Villains or something like that. But it was
League of Evil?
With the Justice League background that I'm using. It was the opposite of the Justice League in the Super Friends TV series.
Right.
Okay, and it would be and Mr. Mind, who is not Brainiac?
No, Mr. Mind
is that little worm at the end of
Shazam.
Shazam.
Yeah. Legion of Doom.
Thank you, Andy.
Okay. Yeah, I had to look it up.
The Legion of Doom is run by Mr. Mind, and Mr. Mind is the worm at the end of Shazam.
This is all conjecture. This is all just wishful thinking at this point.
Yeah.
Well, that's what these last 10 minutes are going to be, my friend. What I need though is first of all, how did he become a tiny worm? Is he an alien?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mr. Mind, and is there a Mrs. Mind? Are there 1,000 larvae? What's happening? What do we know about Mr. Mind?
Well, the interesting thing is which way are they going to go in the next Shazam movie? Because they're obviously going to have Black Adam in it, but Mr. Mind at the end of that talks about there's other ways to reach these other realms. And again, let's go back to Jeff Johns and the stuff he's writing in the current Shazam comic, where he has the other kids that become the other versions of the Captain Marvel character.
Darla.
And in there, they have Black Adam and they have the Wizard and they have some of those other characters, and you can go to these 7 realms as they call them in there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a really interesting comic. It was one of those where about 3 or 4 issues came out, and then the whole pandemic shutdown happened. And it was like 4 or 5 months before we got to read the next issue, something like that.
Oh, wow.
But he's been doing some interesting stuff over there that I think started some of the stuff that may have been in the Shazam movie. It's not clear to me if the Shazam movie started what was in the comics, or if it started in the comics and sort of made its way into the Shazam movie and then back into the comics. That's not clear to me, because the timing of the last 2 or 3 years is kind of weird.
Right. And comics can happen so much faster than movies can.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so the next Wonder Woman movie, if it happens, when did Batman versus Superman and JLA come out? Did they come out in 2018 or?
No, a little earlier.
Like about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Justice League, I'll probably want to say was about 3 or 4 years ago, and Batman versus Superman was a couple of years before that, but I'm going by feel.
Okay, so 2015.
Doing timing by feel in 2020, even if it's 2021, is kind of weird.
So Justice League was 2017.
Okay.
And Batman versus Superman was 2016.
Okay.
I was close.
16 and 17, yep.
So it would make sense that that the next Wonder Woman movie might be a movie about how she meets these guys, or was that already addressed in
That was addressed.
In Justice League?
Yeah, that was addressed.
Okay. So
she meets Superman and Batman versus Superman. She shows up as Wonder Woman. That's actually the first time we see Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. Then they have her movie, which tells her backstory, and then they have Justice League. And she's involved in there. They know who she is.
Right.
But yeah, I figure it's got to, it's probably a modern times movie. There's no reason to jump to like the 1990s.
Right. That'd be
all the way.
Right. That'd be weird. What about if it were a Harley Quinn crossover or a Birds of Prey? Has she ever addressed them in the comics? Do you think?
I'm sure that those characters have crossed over in the comics. But
they're all friends in their own cartoon, Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah, but that's
that might not be
that show I actually like.
Right.
But it's a completely different version of the characters. It's telling, here's all these characters when they're in a high school age.
Right.
Okay. And what's that one called?
DC Superhero Girls or something like that.
And what platform is that on?
That's been on Cartoon Network.
Okay. That's right. You have cable, Lee Bennet.
Yeah, true.
There was also a line of Hot Wheels character cars for it.
Yeah.
You guys, we're weeding off
in addition
here.
to be able to see my superhero stuff, I have to have cable because I have to watch my sports. But,
Right. So I have this to say. It has been an hour. We have just scratched the surface of what promises to be at least 13 more episodes about the DC universe.
Yay!
But you never did get to talk about all the stuff that Jeff Johns has done, which you wanted to talk about at some point.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it was because he's written, I think we read his Aquaman, didn't we?
I don't remember. We're reading the Kelly Sue DeConnick Aquaman right now.
Right. And then he did Superman, and I think he did a bunch of Green Lantern stuff, didn't he?
The Green Lantern stuff was, in my opinion, his best work. Because he completely revamped the Green Lantern mythos, because you had the Star Sapphires, you had the Yellow Rings with Sinestro and the fear-based rings, but he created this whole spectrum of rings and created this whole backstory that says how these things got there. That's all him.
The black,
which
ring?
Honestly, I can't imagine. I don't understand why that hadn't happened before. It's just so like once you have
more than one
you have
color.
Green and yellow and red. Why hasn't somebody done a full rainbow of rings like this?
Yeah,
but he did, and when
he did, he finally did it. Yeah.
And so that was all him. And at the time he started Green Lantern, Hal Jordan was dead. Hal Jordan had this big thing and died, and he brought Hal Jordan
back in the 80s, right, or early 90s.
In the early 90s, I think it was. I mean, he was out of comics for
20
4 or
years.
5 years when they had Kyle Rayner and Guy Gardner being the Green Lanterns.
I think it was 20.
And
I think
John Stewart.
I think they let him stay dead for about 20 years. It was a long time.
I don't think it was that long, but anyway. But yeah, you had other Green Lanterns, and I better not forget John Stewart because he was the first Green Lantern of color.
Okay.
And a great character in a lot of different ways.
Mhm.
But he brought back Hal Jordan in the comics and then created this whole long series of Green Lantern comics that were spectacular. He's done great stuff before. He's done great stuff since, but that to me was his best work to date.
So if he created the Green Lantern is actually a core. Is there like a Red Lantern core?
There was, yeah.
Okay, so
There was a core for all the different ones, the different most of the different colors.
Okay.
Orange was singular because it was the color of greed. So of course there can only be one. But there were the Sinestro Corps, the Corps of Yellow Lanterns, existed before Jeff Johns got involved, and the Star Sapphires. They weren't rings, so to speak, but they existed. But the Red Lantern Corps, the Blue Lanterns, or Indigo Lanterns, and blue and indigo are separate, but those as cores was stuff that he created.
And so did he write one book about this, or did he write a pile of different books?
He wrote Green Lantern. As an editor, he had control of some of these others where you had a Red Lantern comic book, you had a Green Lantern Corps comic book, which focused on a lot of the other characters. And there were other people writing those, but he was the editor in control of the Green Lantern line. So he sort of directed it all, but there were several writers involved, but all of that stuff tied together was so good. It was so good. It was one of the things that survived when one of the times that DC recreated itself and rebooted a whole bunch of other characters, but the Green Lantern stuff was going so strong, they left it alone.
Okay.
So, but that stuff was just fantastic.
What is he writing now? Do you know? Besides movies, obviously.
Well, he's writing the Shazam comic book right now.
Okay.
He's doing one of his own for Image Comics, and
nice.
he's doing some. I think he's doing a couple of other things, but and he's writing a lot for the TV because I think he's involved with the Stargirl series. Because of course that was his creation, right. Stargirl.
All right. Which what TV series are you currently watching in the DC universe?
I'm still watching several of them. I mean, Stargirl came on after the others sort of shut down early because of the pandemic, because it had already been filmed and hadn't been released yet. And that one I thought was fantastic because, first of all, it has a ton of Easter eggs for, those comic book fans of us. You can point to the TV and start laughing and confuse your wife, and then go on to Facebook and discuss it with the other people that are pretty deep into the long box, because it's just got a ton of that stuff in it, and that's Jeff Johns stuff because that man knows his way around a crossover.
That's awesome.
And that one I really enjoyed. I thought they ended Arrow well.
Okay.
I think this is going to be the last season of Supergirl, and of course they're going to be introducing a new one, which is what are they calling it? Lois and Superman or something like that. But it's
really?
It's got the guy who played Superman in all the Crisis crossovers. It's going to be focusing on his life with Lois Lane.
Okay.
And that one promises to be kind of interesting because I thought he was a really good Superman.
Have you seen any of the new Batgirl? Or Batwoman?
Batwoman. Yeah, I watched the first season of that one. They're redoing that one, and they're redoing the Batwoman character.
Yeah, recasting entirely.
I don't know what was going on there. That one was also a bit of a mess to me.
Okay.
Some of the stuff they had in Gotham and some of the characters were really good. Some of the secondary, the not Batwoman characters.
Right.
I don't think it's quite fair to call them secondary characters because they're primaries for the show, but they're not Batwoman. Right. Some of those were really interesting, like Lucius Fox's son. He was really good. the woman that plays Batwoman's the adopted or stepsister was really good, but the whole series I didn't think really it didn't quite capture.
It didn't gel or
Batman
something?
stuff. It didn't gel because the villain in there, and this was out of the comics. The villain in there was Batwoman's actual sister, and she's crazy. I mean, she's nuts.
Oh wait,
like Joker level nuts.
Yeah.
Right.
And but yeah, she kills a
what's
bunch
her
of
name?
people.
Mary?
Yeah, no, they
Like Hamburger Mary or something?
no, it wasn't that character. Because they tie it into Alice in Wonderland, but I'm not going to try to remember the character's name because I'll get it wrong. But she kills a bunch of people, and then Batwoman's going to stop her, but I can't put her away and give her to the cops because she's my sister. So I'm going to let her go, and then she's going to kill a bunch of people, and just oh no, and it didn't work for me.
What did you see that Gotham show where Batman was a kid, where Bruce Wayne was a kid?
Oh yeah, he loves that show.
Oh, Gotham, I thought was fantastic.
Is that still going?
It starts. No, they ended their series. They ended the run on that one a couple of years ago. They told their story. They got out.
Good.
They told the story to the point where he becomes Batman, and then the very last episode, you see him in a bat suit.
Oh,
and it's just the whole thing where they ends and. The kid is in the bat suit and he's perched on the gargoyle on the top of the whole building. I mean, that's like major fanboy stuff right there. It was great. But the characters in there, especially the actor they had playing the Penguin was fantastic. And the Riddler.
The casting on that was really, really good.
Yeah, it's honestly, like a lot of these shows, it takes 4 or 5 episodes to find its voice.
I feel like the casting in all of these shows has been exceptional. Yeah. On all of the WB shows. Supergirl, like I instantly just completely believed that woman is Supergirl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was. I love those first 2 seasons so much. And then
who would have thought that Ducky could be a Lex Luthor? But he was a fantastic Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
But the actor is Ducky in Pretty in Pink.
Yeah, in Pretty in Pink.
And he's done a whole bunch of other stuff, mostly comedy. He's done comedy stuff, but he's a fantastic Lex Luthor. I never would have expected it. John Cryer, I think is his name.
John Cryer, no small affair. Everybody get out there, see a little known Demi Moore, back when she was called Demi Moore, and pre-boob job, no small affair.
Okay.
John Cryer still has all of his hair. Anyway, and he plays a teenager. He plays a high school kid. It's a very mediocre movie, and I can only recommend it because I saw it when I needed to see a mediocre movie back in '87 or whatever it happened. You guys, we are so over an hour, I can't even talk to you.
Okay.
So this has been a delight. I'm talking to Lee Bennet, Andy Ashcraft. It's been a spoiler episode of a lot of things. And let's just, and there will more will be revealed. All right, you guys, thanks a lot for being on the show. And Rangers, you know the rules out there. Take care of each other.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat, my hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that? If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?